Serena and Dawn, our teaching associates in this course, suggested I just jump in there and say hello on video in a way as a reintroduction. You would have met me, of course, during our intensive down in Pacifica, but I wasn't there, and I came in on Zoom, and it left me at least with the question of, did you even hear anything of what I had to say? And I shared some PowerPoint slides as well. So I'm going to reintroduce myself. I'll share those PowerPoints as well. And yeah, I'm literally just jumping in there. I'm doing some yoga in my morning. That's often how I start. And actually want to share with you what happened to me this morning in my meditation, because I think it goes to this issue of what is our inquiry, which I think is the big thing that I want to help you with. And I know Alfonso wants to help you with in our course. What is your inquiry? How to be creative with your inquiry, and how to use the readings and the videos and all that good stuff. And of course, your communications with us, and I'll be available to you on Zoom, and we'll figure it out. But what is your inquiry, right? So I'm meditating this morning. I usually sit for 30 minutes, and unbeknownst to me, in the Insight Timer app that I use, I love that timer, there was some music, but I wasn't aware of it. It was music that was essentially just what they call the eternal stream of water. So what I was hearing was this lovely sound, but about 20 minutes in, I began to wonder, where the hell is that water sound coming from? And then I started to make up stories like, I am going to go to the homeowners association. I live in a townhouse here, and I'm going to complain about the waste of water that's happening because the rains have just come back. We shouldn't be watering. And then my mind leapt to my neighbor. Is it my neighbor? Does he take 25-minute showers? Well, what a bad neighbor that is. And he has these annoying big dogs. They look like the hounds of the Baskerville. So let me stop there. Scary mind. Don't go in there alone, right? The practice that I bring, believe it or not, to my work, it's the practice of catching how thought creates mayhem, and the importance of what Morin in our readings for this week, Morin says of rethinking thought. I would take it a little bit in a different way than Morin goes, but that's a pretty good thing, Or Hannah Arendt says, let us think what it is we do. She said this after the Nazi Holocaust, as she looked at people who had just complied with the madness, really the madness of the Holocaust. And that seems timely again as we live in a time of authoritarian rising, which is making our space for inquiry and creativity that little bit smaller, and hence the importance, I think, of this work. And I love Alfonso's commitment to and decades of work and creative practice with both music and just creativity in general. So what is your inquiry? So if I were to put mine in a little bit of a nutshell, it is literally this question of what is transformative or developmental practice for me, for you, for us, in this context of what Bauman calls liquid times. I love this term, liquid times. I love his book, by the way, Liquid Love. I love all things related to love, precisely because I think intimate relationship is the place where we most show up. However, intimate relationship in some ways is one practice ground for this larger world in need of collaborative redesign, I would say at this point. Post-normal times, Sandar's terms. Essentially, postmodernism is now real in the Western world. One of its manifestations, of course, is fake news, but another manifestation is we can finally begin to see ourselves as the authors of our own systems. This self-authoring, if you noticed Perry's positions or Keegan's stages, my mentor Torbert also calls them stages of development. We, in a way, as humanity, need to move, evolve ourselves to meet the demands of the postmodern times. And for me, Morin's quadruped, if you remember there, page 136, I think it was. I loved his image of the quadruped, the four legs of rationalism, of observation, of imagination, and empiricism. This is, of course, the scientific method. And I, as an action researcher, say yes and, right? That's a creative act. Yes and, it's not enough. This living in the mind, as I shared from my own embarrassing story this morning, the mind can go a little bit mad. So I ask also about the sensual body of that quadruped. You know, what is embodied knowledge? What is the practice of developing ourselves? And I want to share a little bit. My serious take on this work is really digging into Me Too and helping people who want to go beyond just the rage and the anger. That's important, but beyond the rage and the anger with the state of the systems that we've received to help rethink them by going into the truth of what we know. There's a gender piece here, I think, that women especially, but men also, have deeply suffered inside of patriarchy that is, in a way, beginning to come to an end. Who thought 10,000 years of systems are falling down around us? I grew up as a Catholic in Ireland, and so to see this huge system of Catholicism, which informs, by the way, it's not just religion, it informs many, many of our organizations. Why are they so hierarchical? Why are they so male? A lot of it goes back to the beginnings of the Roman Empire, and the church and the army would have carried that. In Alfonso's little story, he asks, why do we have the saddles that we have, right? And why doesn't anybody care about history? We have these saddles because they used to be, you know, they just shrank down horse saddles because that was the only model we had. Why do we have the systems and organizations we have? Because we've kind of kept on replicating the systems that we have. So from the Roman Empire, I mean, yeah. And my more serious work is bringing compendia together for action researchers. I'm the editor of the Journal of Action Research, and I started a foundation a few years ago, essentially to dedicate myself to this work full time, although I do have an academic position in the Swedish, rather prestigious University of Chalmers. I love that it's prestigious, not so much that the prestige falls on me, although that's kind of nice too, but because there's somebody inside this system that's saying research utilization is very important. And in Sweden, and I think the pragmatism of the Swedes helps them to say that. And so I'm delighted to be affiliated with them and have my foundation be at home there. And what the foundation essentially does is it brings together people from around the world who are committed to this kind of postmodern reconstruction, if you will, but as a developmental, as a way of doing mind jazz, what Alfonso might call mind jazz, into the uncertainty and the unknowing. Because really there's two paths to go, right? We can go into lockdown mode, freeze, because we're so uncertain, because these liquid times are so destabilizing. Or we can go more into what is the creative unknown here. And I honestly do think that it's helped that we have practices that develop the self with each other. And I hope that our class will be a little bit like that. May I end with a poem? Not written by me, written by one of my colleagues. Part of my practice is to be in community with people who take developmental inquiry seriously, and developmental of self and of community. How do we learn to do that in community? And it comes from the group. We do things collaboratively. I just read a little bit. It's called Creative Love. Everything you know about love is wrong, could have been the title for this poem. But that's not very creative and wouldn't have earned us 500% more clicks on social media due to the fact that the world is desperate for reframing. Do not fall in love, but rather rise to love, our poem would have said, and never forget that it is more important to love than to be loved. it would have suggested, perhaps highlighting that the most appropriate verb to use for love is to exercise it, the way one does at the gym or on the basketball court. I'm in my yoga outfit. Fight early and fight often, our poem would have advised, because in order to make peace, you have to go to war. So that's my invitation, not so much to go to war, but to really struggle with our own inquiry and bring the readings into that, and to use the writing and the Zoom meetings as best you can for your inquiry. It's not mine, it's not Alfonso's, it's not Dawn's, it's not Serena's, it's yours, and we're here to help you. I look forward to this. It's my honor, truly.